want to talk about the number one question that I get asked on a daily basis. How did I get my baby to sleep through the night? Poppy has been sleeping through the night since she was 6 weeks old. She's now 4 months old, and she sleeps from about 7:30 all the way until 7:15. So what I want to do in this video is break down week by week what we did to sleep train Poppy to sleep through the night starting at 6 weeks. Now you might be thinking to yourself, my baby is 6 months, 7 months old, 9 months old. This is way too late for me to start. And I promise you that it's not. What this schedule really is about is it's about building a habit. It's about building consistency. We went through a sleep regression a couple weeks ago, and because she already had a schedule to fall back on, it was easier to get her back on track. And now we're golden. We are crushing it. Yeah. With all of that being said, I hope that this helps you. I hope that this might be insightful for you. And I hope that you can start to get a good night's sleep and that your baby can get a good night's sleep. Let's get right into week 1. So we started this the day that we took Poppy home from the hospital. And when babies just come home from the hospital, they do 3 things. They eat, they sleep, and they go to the bathroom. So they're little blobs. They're so cute, and you're just like in heaven and overjoyed and baby bliss. And mamas, you are healing, you're recovering. So starting her on a schedule right away was, to us, our only option. We also knew that if we put her on a schedule, that would give us a little bit more freedom. She would then fit into our lives around her schedule, of course, rather than us changing our life to be around her. This is just what we wanted as parents. So in order to start with her sleep training, the first thing that we did was we focused on her feeds. So we knew exactly what time she was going to eat throughout the day and into the night. We knew that we wanted her day to start at 7 a.m., so we made sure that her first feeding was at 7 a.m. Now, before every feeding, we would change her diaper, just so that she would know that, oh, I have a clean diaper, now I get to eat. So when I say her feeds, know that we've changed her diaper right before that. So for week 1, her feeding schedule was feeding at 7 a.m., 9:30 a.m., 12, 2:30, at 5, and then we did a nighttime feed at 7:30, which was essentially her bedtime feed. Then we get into her dream feed. Her dream feed was at 10 p.m. Now her dream feed lasted quite a while because the dream feed is all about filling up their little stomachs so that they can sleep longer and go through longer periods of stretches without eating as often. So she had a 10 p.m. dream feed, and then I would wake her up at 1 a.m. to feed her, and then I would also wake her up at 4 a.m. to feed her. All of that being said, if she was still napping during those times, we made the decision to wake her up to feed her because we really wanted to get her on that schedule of feeding and sleeping. Because they're a newborn, because they're learning, I will say week 1 to like the earlier weeks, feedings were lasting so much longer. So I would literally feel like I'm feeding and then put her down, and then it was like the alarm was going off again to feed her. It was a lot. It was a lot, but we did it. The other thing I learned very quickly was how much noise newborns make. Nobody talks about that. They make so much noise. They sound like they're choking. They sound like they're crying, but they're asleep, which is just wild to me. So what I realized, and I was doing her a disservice, is that when I heard her crying, I didn't check to see if her eyes were open. I didn't check to see if she was asleep. I would immediately go and pick her up and like soothe her and comfort her, which then eventually woke her up. So then she was crying more, and then I had to get her back to sleep. Because of that, I then learned to make sure she was awake before picking her up and making sure like she was actually awake and crying rather than if she was just like crying in her sleep. And then I would just give it some time. So I gave it 2 minutes. I never let her cry for longer than 2 minutes. If she was crying for longer than 2 minutes, I would pick her up and then get her back. But it was kind of shocking that she would just like wail, and then I would look down, but her eyes would be closed, and then back to sleep. And I'm like, girlfriend, good job. So now week 2. Week 2 is exactly the same as week 1. So 7 a.m. feeding, 9:30 feeding, 12 o'clock feeding, 2:30 feeding, a 5 p.m. feeding, 7:30 p.m. bedtime feed, a 10 p.m. dream feed, a 1 a.m. feed, and a 4 a.m. feed. And then you start the day all over again starting at 7. Now for week 3, we start to extend and push the schedule just a little bit. Now, I will preface by saying we had scheduled out her feedings. Were there times in between that she was so hungry and we needed to feed her? Absolutely. I never, ever, ever will and never, ever, ever did let my baby go hungry. If we were off schedule or if it was in between feeds and she was just still so hungry, I fed her. It wasn't an everyday thing. It was like a one-off thing and it still worked. It was still okay. So this is the week 3 schedule. A 7 o'clock feed, a 10 o'clock feed, a 1 o'clock feed, a 4 p.m. feed, a 7 o'clock feed, a 10 p.m. feed, the dream feed, a 2 a.m. feed, and a 5 a.m. feed. And then within that was 2 hours. And then you start again at your good morning feed at 7. Week 3 was definitely when I started noticing more predictability. She knew that feeds were coming. What was so cool is that she was learning with us learning. And it was very, very clear. So that was just so cool. We had to switch sides. So week 4 was super fun because we started introducing bath time. So her feeding schedule went 7 a.m., 10 a.m., 1 p.m., 4 p.m., 6:30 p.m. was the bath. Because we put something in the schedule, sometimes she would get a little bit fussy. But also you would just read her signs. If it was like that she just needed a quick little pick-me-up, then that's what we would do, a little top off, if you will. So the 6:30 bath time, and then we would do a 7 o'clock bedtime feed. This is the week that we also implemented a soundtrack so that she could correlate certain sounds with what is coming next, which is just so fun. She still listens to the same music that we started at this time when she is having her nighttime feed. Then I would do the 10 p.m. dream feed, and then I would do a 3 a.m. feed. And that was week 4. We switched sides again. So at week 5, this is where we started to implement nap times. So she would have her good morning 7 a.m. feed. Then she would have an 8:30 nap. Then she would do a 10 a.m. feed, followed by an 11 o'clock nap. Then she would have a 1 o'clock feed, followed by a 2:30 nap, a 4 p.m. feed, followed by a 5 o'clock quick little cat nap. And then she would have her bath at 6:45, her good night feed at 7 p.m., and then her dream feed, her fill up the tank feed at 10. And then she would start to stir around 4 or 5. And at that time, whenever it was between 4 or 5, then I would do a feed then. And then we would start the day all over again. Nap time's over. I'm going to feed the baby, and then we'll come back and finish talking about the schedule. We're back. Baby has been fed, and all is right in the world. For week 6, where she started sleeping through the night. So it started with her good morning 7 a.m. feed. Then she had an 8:30 nap. Then she had a 10 a.m. feed, and then an 11 o'clock nap, a 1 o'clock feed with a 2:30 nap, a 4 o'clock feed, sometimes a 5 o'clock cat nap, sometimes not. Look at you. And then her 6:45 bath time. Thank you. Her 7 o'clock nighttime routine, and then her 10 o'clock dream feed. This was where she would sleep from 10 o'clock all the way until 7. Now, what I made sure I did is at that 10 o'clock dream feed, I just loaded up her tank to make sure that she lasted until 7 o'clock, which she did, and it was amazing. That was weeks 1 through 6. Now, I want to give you the schedule that we're on now because I think that that's super helpful. And again, it's just the transition from where we were. But before I do that, I just want to share a couple quick things that worked for us. The number one thing is that it's not about perfection. It's about consistency. Giving her a consistent schedule, making it a habit, helped tremendously. The second thing was daytime preps for nighttime. So daytime was all about prepping to make sure that she slept through the night. If she didn't nap her whole nap, that was okay. If it was 20 minutes, if it was 2 hours, I was chilling as long as she slept through the night. I also made sure that by the time she went to bed, she was full. So making sure she ate enough during the day, making sure her feeds were always full feeds, never like short little bursts. Well, how'd that on your nose? The third thing was her bedtime routine. So that starts with her bath time. We start the bath, we turn on her music, we give her a bath, and then we take her into her room. She gets her night massage, she gets her jammies on, we do a feed, her music is still playing, we do a story, and then we have a nice little cuddle, and then she goes to bed. And then the last thing that is like the biggest takeaway was waiting before rushing in. It was really hard. It was a hard habit for me because I wanted to just get in there straight away and help her out. But making sure that, number one, is she awake? Is she just making noise while she's sleeping? Is she just, what is it? And then giving myself 2 minutes before I went in and actually like held her, put her back to sleep, all that kind of stuff. Making it easier on both of us in the end. So here is what our schedule looks like today. It is an evolution of what we've already trained her to do, but it starts with a 7 a.m. good morning feed, and then she naps around 8:30. Then she feeds at 10:30, naps at noon, then she feeds at 2, naps at 3:15, feeds at 5, and then feeds again at 7. And then in between, obviously at 6:45, we do her bedtime bath time routine. She's no longer doing dream feeds. She's sleeping from 7:30 all the way until 7. And then with her dream feeds, we just slowly weaned her off. So we had a bottle of 4 ounces that then we went down to a half an ounce less. So then 3.5, 3, 2.5, 2. And then by that point, I was like, well, it's silly to wake her up for a 1.5 ounce bottle. And the first night, she crushed it and she slept all the way through. So that has been our sleep journey. It has been hard work, but completely rewarding. She's an amazing baby, and I'm just so grateful that that is what worked for us. And if this helps you, which I hope it does, great. If this is something that you want to try, have more questions on, please let me know. I'm more than happy to answer them. And I wish you the best of luck. No matter what you're doing, just know that you are doing an amazing job. Parenting is not easy, but it is so, so, so rewarding. So good job, and I hope that this helped, and I'll see you soon. Bye.